Good morning, Dan and Amy. What do you think the Trust Act refers to? The Trust Act. That's what Senate Bill 31 is called. The Trust Act. It would turn Illinois into a sanctuary state. You know, to rebuild the trust between our political leadership.
Who authored that bill?
And Illinois families. This passed yesterday.
Oh, yes.
Out of the Senate, roll call vote. I mean, a party line vote. 31 Democrat state senators. And the reason I bring this up, number one, just to apprise you that that's moving through the General Assembly to make Illinois a sanctuary state so that you'd have state law preempt the ability of local units of government to work with law enforcement as it pertains to, persons here illegally. And also to explain to you why Chicago Democrat crime families remain in control of the state, why they can do things that are generally unpopular and remain in control of the state. Because there was one Republican who couldn't bring herself to vote against this legislation, and she happens to be the Senate superminority leader, Christine Radogno.
Really?
Who voted present. That's the leadership you have in the Republican Party. You've had so often the Republican Party over the last couple of generations, and it's why, in part, you have the state that you have. Can curse the darkness about Madigan all you want. You also have to look at the performance of people that are ostensibly on your side, don't you? So I just wanted to bring that to people's attention because it segues to the other problem that we have as persons that are center-right, persons that are small c conservative. And it's taking up issues that directly impact people's lives and making an argument, making a case for structural, substantial public policy change to rethink and re-engineer everything we do in this state that is unfair, immoral, and unworkable, which is a perfect segue to talking about property taxes again. We've done analyses that nobody's ever done before in Chicago. That's what we're doing now. We've done them in suburban Cook and the Collars. Today, the west side of Chicago. And the story, much like the south side of Chicago that we discussed last week, is the immoral way in which property is assessed in this state, the mysticism of politicians jacking people's market assessed valuation, stay with the terminology, in order to jack their property taxes that has no relation to the actual marketplace, the private marketplace.
They're robbing us. Literally. That's what you do when you rob people. You take something that's not yours.
That's what, and
that's what they're doing.
This is where the government says your home is worth more than any
realtor would put it on the market for.
Well, than any buyer would purchase it for.
Yeah,
that's the bottom line, isn't it? So the west side of Chicago, in the 16 square blocks of Chicago's West Side Austin neighborhood, between Cicero on the east and Laramie on the west, Chicago Avenue on the north, and the Green Line L tracks on the south, there have been exactly 7 home sales in the past 6 months. Home ownership is a thing of the past and wide swaths of the city, in case you haven't figured out. Those 7 home sales in the past 6 months, average sale price $43,000. The Cook County assessor's average market value on those homes, $121,000. 182% more than the market actually did bear. We looked at the west side, home to 41% of the city's residential properties. The Chicago west side is similar, is smaller, I should say, than the south side, but similar. South side, 41% of the city's residential values, south and southwest side. West side, 12% of the city's homes. Similar story, and it starts with this government valuation system that we have. In the corner of East Central Austin, a white a 3-bedroom with a front porch and a large backyard at 5033 West Chicago Avenue sold for $30,000 on April 3rd. Its valuation by Cook County Assessor's Office.
Gosh. Let me guess, 90?
$134,000.
Oh, come on.
Mm-hmm.
So how much are they paying in taxes?
Well, here's the thing. What is happening in Chicago through this system that I'm describing, these two competing systems, the woozy dream world of assessed valuation promulgated by the Cook County Assessor's Office in terms of home value, and what the market will actually bear for a person's home, it is negatively impacting disproportionately negatively impacting minority families. It's effectively on the south and west sides of the city precluding black families and to a lesser extent Latino families from property ownership.
Yeah.
You want to talk about racism? You want to talk about redlining? Let me just explain this to you. By the way, that 5033 West Chicago Avenue, valued at $134,000 by the Cook County Assessor, sold for $30,000.
Mm-hmm.
The property tax bill, $2,460. At a sale price of $30,000.
That's highway robbery. I rented the house that I own, and I wish I could have stayed renting it. That's for sure.
You and me
I would have been
both,
better off.
sister. You have to be. I mean, this is interesting because in some of the stylish neighborhoods on the west side, things aren't as bad. Places like Bucktown and Westtown. I'll get to that, but there's still the gathering storm. But listen to this. Median sale price 2007 to 2015. Some of these west side neighborhoods, particularly the heavy minority neighborhoods. West Garfield Park, down 88%. Lawndale, down 77%. East Garfield Park, down 75%. Little Village, down 70%. Austin, down 68%. Hermosa, down 48%. Galewood, down 43%. You go all the way down. I mean, you get West Loop, down 18%. Logan Square, the hot Logan Square, actually down 12% still.
Really?
Ukrainian Village, down 9%. Wicker Park, only down 3%. Bucktown is actually plus 2%, River West plus 2%, Westtown plus 2%.
What's Lakeview? Oh, that's probably.
This is that's not the
We're
west
in
side
a
of the city.
category of our.
Yeah, we'll get to your north side castles at some point.
They're called McMansions. Same floor plan, different exterior.
And so one of the things, because you have some neighborhoods that are popping, and because in the city you have commercial that subsidizes residential effectively in the property tax system, you have some neighborhoods that are not feeling the damage equally, okay? The neighborhoods that are attracting the wealthier people, the professional people, the small gross number of people, the small percentage of the population of the city that frankly finances it all. And it doesn't really finance it all because it just can't. The obligations are too immense, which is why you have pension funds circling the drain and the like that we've spoken about. Here's what's happened between 2007 and 2015, though, in terms of property tax rate, going back to the minority neighborhoods. West Garfield Park. The effective property tax rate as a percentage of home value has increased 941% in West Garfield Park. The effective tax rate is 8.76% of home value, which is almost 10 times the national average.
Yeah.
Lawndale, 4.85%, which is 4.5 times the national average, a 408% increase in the last 8 years. East Garfield Park, 360% increase. And on down the line until you get to West Loop, near West Side, River West, where you see 28%, 17%, 12% increases over that same time period. And they're closer to the national average. They're below the state average because of demand. Okay? But it doesn't mean that the storm isn't gathering. But I want to stick on minority neighborhoods for just a second. Because, frankly, I'm less concerned by champagne socialists that are, earning hundreds of thousands of dollars. But
Millions.
it's or millions. But it's still the same. It's still the same story.
Right.
But I mean, just understand. So go to 2023. Property taxes paid as a percentage of home value between 2007 and 2023. In West Garfield Park, the projected median sale price will be $4,000. During that 15-year period, 16-year period, the median amount of property taxes paid will be $47,665. You will pay 1,141% of your home's value just in property taxes 16 years. You will pay for your house 11 times in West Garfield Park in 16 years on property taxes alone. Lawndale, you'll pay for your house almost 3.5 times. East Garfield Park, you'll pay for your house 2.5 times. Little Village, you'll pay for your house 1.7 times. Just over 16 years, just in property taxes. Austin, you'll pay for your house nearly 1.5 times. And then you go down the line to the neighborhoods that are doing a little bit better. And, the near West Side, you'll pay 22% of your home value over 16 years in property taxes. River West, 18%. West Loop, 25%. University Village, Little Italy, 31%. West Town, 23%. Irving Park, 25%. Okay. So I guess the question becomes again, particularly for minority families in the city. I mean, and I know they've vacated wide swaths of the city. That's one of the reasons Chicago has its lowest population since 1920 is because minority families have left. Couldn't take it, understandably so. And home ownership is, as I said at the outset, an anachronism in large swaths of the West and South Side. But is that right? And should those same minority families who've been effectively precluded from property ownership, usurious doesn't even begin to describe these numbers, except at usurious rates, does that make anybody think differently about who they're electing and the rules of the game under which they live? And also for people that are wealthy and feign concern for people that are not. Right? I mean, the audience, when you talk about CPS, when you talk about the West Side and the South Side, the audience is in part the West Side and the South Side, but it's really, for the politicians, the Champagne Socialists on the lakefront, on the North Shore, in wide swaths of the suburbs these days, because they want to feel like have concern for their fellow man and they're helping people who haven't had the same opportunities that they've had, whether it be education or economic opportunity. Well, are you? By propping up the political class that props up this system, are you helping families in West Garfield Park and Lawndale and East Garfield Park and Little Village and Austin? John in Lincolnwood, you're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Hi, Dan and Amy. It's John. Thank you. I just wanted to thank you, Dan. You're the only radio station that actually brings this stuff up, and it's amazing when I argue with my liberal friends about property taxes and all the counties you bring up and how the percentages and all those things, they don't believe it. They don't believe any of it. They think it's all right-wing stuff, and you're just crazy, and it's not true. My property tax, I'm like, it's true. Look at my property taxes in Lincolnwood. I show them.
Yeah.
But they just don't want to believe it. And, I was wondering if you could do me a favor. I know you've said this quite a few times, but I'm always in the car when you say it. Where's the website that I can prove to them that you can get this information, especially about the school spending, because that's why your property taxes go up. Because I had another argument with somebody. He said, the schools aren't spending stuff. It's just the boards that are spending the money.
I don't even know what that means. I mean, this is the boards of the schools are connected. You may want to tell your friend. I mean, John, I take your point. I mean, people. Here's what I say to people who've thrown up their hands. Say people don't care. I say people don't know. People don't know. And your friends that just don't want to believe it, that the suspension of disbelief that afflicts the state, they'll believe it. They'll believe it when they try and sell their home, and I don't care where they are, what they think their home is worth, and how they think it's increasing in value or something like this. And when they actually put it on the market, then they're going to start to believe the numbers, because the numbers are the numbers. It's all cited. I've gone through it a million times. On this West Side story, just to answer your question, ChicagoCitywire.com. ChicagoCitywire.com is where we're posting all the city stuff. And then if you go to LGIS.co, Local Government Information Services, the publishing company, Local Government Information Services, LGIS.co. It's got a list of all the newspapers, the outlets that we have in the state. And so you just, DuPage Policy Journal has the DuPage numbers, and the Will County Gazette has the Will County numbers, and the Kane County paper has the Kane County, and so on and so forth. But LGIS.co is where you can get an inventory of all the papers. ChicagoCitywire.com is where we have posted the story about the West Side this week, as we did the South Side last week.
That's awesome, guys. You guys are great. I'm so glad I found you a few months ago, and I'm like, I've been listening every day. I love you guys.
Thanks much, John. I appreciate that, and I'm glad. Thanks very much for the call, and thanks for raising the issue. I mean, I really think that is. It's not that people don't care; it's that people don't know, and this is why just circulate the information. As I said, we're happy to do the legwork. We're happy to raise the issue and discuss about it, and have a discussion about it and provide the forum. But then you got to take this information and run with it. Neil in LaGrange, you're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Hey, I love your show. I've got two comments. The one comment I'd like to say is not all school boards are spendthrifts.
That's true.
I'm on a school board, District 106, and we don't deficit spend. We have money at the bank. We really watch our salaries, and like for instance, if there's something that is like a big expenditure, like for instance, one of our middle school has a roof that's coming due in a couple of years. We've been putting money in the bank aside, so once we spend that $500,000, we've got it now. But here are some real numbers though. Our annual budget is about $13 million. 80% of that is already spent on salaries,
right,
and benefits.
Right.
So that extra that 20%. But I remember the other thing. You're talking about property taxes. If you could tell that story again about those property managers that built those Costco's.
Oh yeah.
If you could tell that story again, because that really hits home. What did you say? I think you said the one in Melrose Park is $600,000 after it's all said and done, and the one up in Milwaukee was about $8 million.
Yep.
Do I have those numbers correct?
Yep. Same square footage, same annual sales,
yep.
And that was the difference in profit: $8 million versus $600,000.
Yep.
Melrose Park versus Milwaukee.
And one last thing, I did what you said. We have a friend of ours that lives in Indiana, same size property as kind of what we have. They're not even close to $2,000 a year in property taxes.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I'm in unincorporated Cook County, and we're getting close to about $7,000.
Yeah. Thanks for the call, Neil.
Amazing.
Appreciate it. And I can see the point about school. Not all school boards, not all municipal governments are the same. Different people abide their fiduciary responsibilities very differently. And so this is not just blaming elected officials, blaming people on school boards, municipal officials, and so forth. This is about saying we have a structural problem. We have a system problem. The system has to change. You can't make it work. Even I could not make it work. That's how bad the system is.
Oh, that's bad.
Yeah, exactly. Matt in LaGrange Park.
Hi, Dan. I think you've said this before, but what's the solution to the whole property tax thing? What's the transparency formula?
The solution that I'm proposing is a 1% hard cap on property taxes as a percentage of home value, which is what Indiana has. It can only increase when you have a capital event, which is an improvement or a sale. and you set a market valuation not based on mysticism like EAV. You set it based on an actual market valuation. You eliminate the layers of assessing, and you go from there. And this is a way to restore home equity to people, to provide a return on investment on the largest investment most people are going to make, of course, their home. And the home is more than a structure. There's a psychological value to your home, too. It's where you decided to live and sacrifice and embed yourself and raise your kids and send them to school. And you have government taking it away. You don't own your home. You lease it from the government. So 1% hard cap, like Indiana does, and it would force discipline at the local level, and it would also allow us to leverage that discipline to the state and make the state prioritize its responsibilities, like being the primary funder of K through 12 education, which is what the center left always talks about, but they don't. But they reject my idea, which is in place in Indiana, because what they really want is a blank check at every level of government. But this is the solution. This is what we're going to advance. This is what we're going to try and get as an advisory question on the 2018 ballot, and drive the conversation, because I think, as I've said before in the show, the question for Illinois families right now is revolt or bolt, and we want to stoke the revolt rather than the bolt. Thanks for the call, Matt.